And I realized, oh, if I'm going to live my values, that's not going to be good enough for me anymore. I had worked for years part-time at somebody else's private practice as a therapist. I think I need to quit. And I think I'm going to open up my own practice. So I went home and I told my husband about this, who has always been my biggest cheerleader. And he said, yeah, go for it. I think it's going to be great. Yes. And then I started telling other people about it. And they didn't meet it with the same enthusiasm that I would have thought. Along the lines of, well, what are you going to do for insurance? Are you sure you want to do that? You have a very predictable income. You have some job. Or it would just be like, okay, as if I wasn't serious at all. The old me would have negative messages to come in, and I would have stopped and said, yeah, of course. I should come back into my bubble, into that corner, and do what is safe. But I realized for me to avoid feeling uncomfortable, I was also avoiding my values. And we all know what they say about comfort zones. They're beautiful places. Nothing ever grows there. So I said, nope, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to allow these negative emotions to go for the ride, because life is not about getting rid of anxiety, getting rid of fear, getting rid of all of this negative self-talk. Life is about living your values. And the more that I lived my values, the more I could take emotions along with me. Because my values were going to be driving, no longer the emotions. And so every decision that I made at that point was with intention. I would think, is what I'm about to do moving me toward or away from my values? And if it was moving me away from my values, I don't care how comfortable it made me feel, I wasn't going to do it. What I learned with this is what comes up when you start living your values and stop living in a life of vulnerability, which for me is one of the most uncomfortable emotions that we feel, right? But I had to be vulnerable because I had to call out my fears. I had to talk about what I was afraid of. I had to say what I was going to do, even though I thought people might judge me for doing it, even though I thought they're going to find me out, they're going to know I'm not good enough for this. I did it anyways. But what I found in doing that, and in naming my demons and talking about what scares me, other people around me started talking about what scares them. And I realized in that moment, vulnerability is the single best connector than anything else. Because when we can be vulnerable with each other, we can be real. So I did end up quitting my job as a counselor, and I opened my practice, Whole Mind Wellness, that is thriving now. I wrote 2 workbooks, Design Values and How to Manage Anxiety. I host a podcast, and I wrote that book called Shade of Pink. And it's about my journey with cancer, but more than that, it's really about how to live your values, and it's really about overcoming obstacles and living a life that is inspiring. I don't believe everything happens for reasons. I believe that sometimes things just happen, and it's up to us to find the reason. We all have fear. Fear is a jerk. It tells us to play it safe when really we should be taking risks. Whatever you are, find your reason. We are all worth live inspired. Why night with friends? Why nights save lives? Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Oh, this is yours.
No worries. Okay, we're going to do a quick mic swap for our next speaker. So turn to a new neighbor, introduce yourself. You talked about what's one fearless thing you really